Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhara, Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Narayanam Namaskritya, Naram Chaiva Narottamam, Devim Saraswatim Vyasam, Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Naranarayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayeshu Abhadreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttama Shloke, Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Jai Vrindara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai. So you realize one thing, that before we start chanting Bhagavatam, we have to invoke so much of blessings from the Parampara. We have to invoke so much of blessings from the Acharyas. Because on our own, it's very difficult to speak on Bhagavatam. We should never take this principle for granted. That is why Srila Prabhupada established the Guru Parampara and made it very clear to us how important it is. Otherwise, sometimes, in so many different denominations, there is no emphasis on Guru Parampara. And we don't realize that this knowledge can only come to us, not in terms of theory, but it must come in terms of practice. And practice can only happen if we realize it. The realization cannot occur just by personal endeavor. Brahma made so much personal endeavor in this chapter and the chapter preceding this chapter. So he did so much on his own just to dive into the bottom of the lotus stem to understand where he came from. But despite all that time he spent, it was not possible for him to understand the source or the origin of where he came from. So we should learn from Brahma in this chapter, because this is the last two verses we're doing. We should learn from Brahma that on our own it is very difficult to understand the origin of Krishna or even the science of devotional service. But the moment Brahma sat down and then he decided that he would sit down and perform tapas, and he performed austerity, and in his sincerity Krishna actually appeared in his heart. And Krishna then stated tapa. And therefore then he sat down and he chanted and he prayed. And then by Krishna's mercy, it was possible for him to be revealed. All that knowledge that was needed was actually revealed. So we should always remember that Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, all our scriptures, they are revealed knowledge. They are not knowledge that we learn. The Quran, the Bible, they are revealed knowledge. And anyone may read it, but to the extent of our devotional service, to the extent of our sincerity of following the instructions of Krishna, to that extent the knowledge will be revealed. So this is a very important point. In these two verses, let's look at the first verse. The verse is 43. In the first verse, Brahma is actually an important point here that Krishna is giving Brahma, is this nice point. You will see here, it ends, the verse says, Krishna says, by following my instructions. So the important thing we should understand is the importance of following the instructions of Krishna. This is very important. That's why the whole chapter ends by Krishna stating this point emphatically, that if we follow the instructions of Krishna, then we are successful. Not materially, but successful in our spiritual life. Materially we may be, we may not. It doesn't have an impact on our spiritual life. And particularly we should understand this importance from Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita. In 3:31 of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says very nicely to Arjuna, Ye me matam idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto anashuyanto muchanti tepi karmavihi. It's a very important shloka. And here Krishna tells very clearly to Arjuna that Arjuna, those persons who execute their duties, in other words, we must all execute our duties. That is very important. We cannot not execute our duties. And what is our first duty? Savai pumsam parodharmo. We may have so many dharmas. We are fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters to so many people. But Bhagavatam tells us that there is only one dharma which is common to all of us. And that is yathor bhakti adok sajev. We have to render devotional service to Krishna. That is our primary duty. So whatever that we do, never forget that our first business, as Srila Prabhupada said, is to be a devotee. In any situation, in any interaction, sometimes devotees fight with each other. That's because we have forgotten our dharma. If our first dharma is to be a devotee, why should as devotees we be fighting with each other, quarreling with each other, criticizing each other, finding fault with each other? That is not the business of a devotee. The business of a devotee is to serve Krishna and his devotees. So therefore, the moment we forget this, then we are in difficulty. So in 3:31 it is nicely stated, those who execute their duties according to my injunctions. You see the word matam? Matam means injunctions. And this is common. The word matam is found in many of our Indian languages, right? And it actually means, a very strong rule or an injunction. Injunction means you have to do it. So Krishna says very clearly that if you do your duties according to my instructions, then what happens? You must follow whatever that I've given you. You must follow these teachings faithfully. That is how we follow the instructions of Krishna. So if you want to follow the instructions of Krishna as devotees, the most important ingredient is faith. Shraddhavanto. And this faith is very important because if you look at the word faith, Shraddha, it means that we must have faith in Krishna's instructions. And faith means that we cannot do something in a whimsical manner. Whimsical means I do it one day when I like it, I do it another day when I don't like it. That doesn't mean we have faith in Krishna. It means we do it out of self-interest. There's a difference. Sometimes you want to follow Krishna's injunctions because it suits you. But sometimes you may not follow Krishna's injunctions because it doesn't suit you. That actually means we don't have faith. We're just using Krishna according to what we want. It is self-interest. So the materialist also comes to see Krishna, but his motive is driven this way. And therefore he cannot follow the instructions of Krishna. Very hard. You notice a lot of demons in Bhagavatam, they wanted so many things. Of course, they were afraid to approach Krishna, or sometimes they approach Krishna with a motive. And when you approach Krishna with a motive, then it's very difficult to follow his instructions. So faith is the first ingredient for us to follow instructions. The second point, 3:31, tells us that we should have Shraddhavanto Anasuyanto. Anasuyanto means without envy. This is very important. The demons cannot follow the instructions of Krishna because they are envious of him. And it is said by Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas that we ended up in this material world because we were actually envious of Krishna. This is something we must accept. Of course now, how can we be envious of Krishna? We're worshipping him. But the truth is, if we are not envious of Krishna, then we should be following his instructions. If we are not following his instructions, therefore we are envious of him. So it's a very important point for us to understand. So where there is lack of faith and where there is envy, then it's very difficult. So in this verse, it is stated that if you follow the teachings faithfully and without envy, then it is very simple. Uchante tepi karmavihi. We will become freed of the bondage of fruitive activities. Otherwise, whatever activities that we do, karma bandhanaha, they catch us, Prabhu's Mataji's. Whether we like it or not, they catch us. If you perform an activity that doesn't have anything to do with Krishna, you have just created more work for you because there is more consequences to follow. If you have a desire, if you come out of Cuff Road and you see a beautiful car passing by and you say, I wish I bought that car. Don't worry. A body will be built for you in the future so that you can buy that car. The only problem is by then the car is outdated and you probably have desired 300 other cars, and that's why the next time you get this car in your next life, you're not very happy and you're frustrated. That's why my Guru said, that's why all marriages are in difficulty in Kali Yuga. Because you saw someone walking by and you thought this would be a good wife. By the time you get here in your next life, you've already changed your mind. And by the time you get married, you are never satisfied. Because you think, oh, someone can be better, I can do better. And like this, we are never satisfied in anything. So therefore, there is a strong connection between following the instructions of Krishna, faith, and envy. These are very important points. To follow him, we must not be envious and we must be faithful. And Prabhupada writes in the purport that the essence of the Supreme Personality, this injunctions of Krishna, is actually the essence of all Vedic wisdom. Do you see it in the purport? Right? I think it's towards the end or somewhere in the middle, right? You can see that. The essence of all Vedic wisdom. And how does Krishna address Brahma today? He addresses him also, right, as by the dint of your complete Vedic wisdom. Do you remember many verses ago, Brahma was also addressed by Krishna as O depth of Vedic wisdom, right? So you can notice, even in this verse, in the verse we look at today, in the verses before that, Brahma is known as the depth of Vedic wisdom, which means the true purport of being wise in the Vedas is to actually follow the instructions of Krishna. That is very important. The more obedient we are to Krishna, the more easier to follow his instructions. Therefore, if one wants to follow Krishna's instructions, the quality of obedience is so important. Without the quality of obedience, it is very difficult to go back to Godhead. Very, very difficult. There's a nice purport, 1.5.24 of Srimad Bhagavatam. In 1.5.24 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says so nicely, I think it's towards the end, without being self-controlled, you can repeat, without being self-controlled, without being disciplined, and without being fully obedient, no one can become successful in following the instructions of the spiritual master. And without doing so, no one is able to go back to Godhead. We should memorize this verse, right? Many of us were told to memorize this verse over and over and over and over, so it's in our heads. But this verse, this line of Prabhupada's actually makes the case for today's verse. This is the meaning of following instructions. That if you want to follow instructions, you have to be self-controlled. If you're not self-controlled, you will never be disciplined. If you're not disciplined, how can you be discipled? Srila Prabhupada said, disciple means to be disciplined. And without being fully obedient to Krishna and the spiritual master, then how can we be successful in following the instructions of Krishna and the spiritual master? And if you don't follow the instructions of Krishna and the spiritual master, Prabhupada emphatically says, no one is going to go back to Godhead. We are not going to go back to Godhead. So this is a very important point we should understand. The opposite, but then we may ask ourselves this question, is it not possible in the beginning of Krishna consciousness that we may try to follow the injunctions of Krishna? We want to, but somehow sometimes we are not able to follow all the instructions. Then how? Right? That's an important point. The answer is so nicely given by Prabhupada in 331 purport. It's in the last sentence. It's an amazing sentence actually. That's why we have to keep reading Srila Prabhupada's books without fail. We cannot stop reading. We must become a worm in the book of Srila Prabhupada. Look at the last line Prabhupada says. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord. I think all of us can appreciate this. At least Prabhupada, knows our heart. Because in the beginning, we find it difficult. Because we cannot fully discharge. We want to discharge, but we are not able to fully discharge. And, but Prabhupada writes very nicely, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. Isn't that a powerful statement from the founder Acharya? It is full of hope, full of confidence. It gives us the confidence that the process is perfect. We just have to follow the process. And what is very important is, don't be resentful of the principles. In other words, there's one thing that you cannot follow. Okay, I'm trying to chant 16 rounds. But I'm able to chant 16 rounds, but it's mechanical. But I must chant it with feeling. So we cannot say, why should I chant 16 rounds? It's just an arbitrary thing. That is resentment for the principle. But we should be obedient to the principle and say, Krishna, I desire to chant 16 rounds with quality, but I am unable to do so. That means we are not resentful. We want to do it. And therefore, we also should not be defeated and feel hopeless. Never feel discouraged in Krishna consciousness. Never feel, it's a hopeless situation. I don't know which life I'll go back to Krishna. No, we should not feel that way. We shouldn't feel defeated. We are never defeated. Krishna tells Arjuna very clearly in Bhagavad Gita, a devotee of mine is never vanquished. So how can we be defeated? Yes, we may make mistakes, but never lose hope. Never feel defeated. But do not be resentful. Work harder and you'll be fine. This is the point. Brahma, how hard he worked. Can anyone say in this chapter that Brahma did not work hard to receive the instructions of Krishna? My God, he worked like a donkey. More than a donkey. More than all of us combined. Years and years and years of penance. And he was alone. He had no one with him. Krishna didn't make it easy for Brahma at all. He didn't. Krishna never made it easy for any of the devotees in Bhagavatam. Nobody. Gajendra, 1,000 years of being locked in the lake or in the jaws of the crocodile. That wasn't easy. But still he chanted beautiful prayers to Krishna. He even could offer a lotus to Krishna as Krishna was coming. Can you imagine? I will not be in any position to offer lotus after 1,000 years. I'll say, Krishna, hurry up, what took you so long? That's how we would say it. But you see, the devotees, they have so much faith in Krishna. They want to be obedient to his instructions. The result is that they were always successful. Parikshit Maharaj was successful. Gajendra was successful. Sudama was successful. The Devatas who churned the milk ocean, they were successful. There was nobody in Bhagavatam, no devotee who was defeated. Vritasur looked like he was defeated. But in the end, it was Indra who had to run around for many, many years being chased by sin personified. And all that time, what was Vritasur doing? He had gone back home to Godhead, enjoying his time in bliss with Krishna. So there is no loss. So be obedient to the instructions of Krishna. This is the point. If you're not obedient, then 332 tells us what happens to those who are not obedient. In 332 it is very nicely stated, Etu etat abhyasuyantu. It's just the opposite. Nanutishtanti me matam. The word injunction is there. Sarva, jnana, vimudam stam, vidhi, nastan, achetasaha. Achetasaha means consciousness. Achetasaha means no consciousness. So those who are out of envy, disregarding the teachings of Krishna, in other words, they don't follow. And they don't follow them regularly. See the word that Krishna Prabhupada uses. In other words, if you follow Krishna's instructions, you must follow them regularly. Not Monday I follow, Tuesday I don't follow, Wednesday I follow, Thursday I'm off from everything, Friday I follow, Saturday program definitely I'll follow, Sunday morning I'll follow, Sunday evening I'll forget it. That's not regularly. That is whimsically again. So we can't do that. So those who out of envy, they disregard the teachings and don't follow regularly, they are considered to be, that means three things will happen to us when we don't follow Krishna's instructions. First, we will be bereft of all knowledge. Whatever that you are studying, we will forget. Even if you remember the shlokas, you can't put them into practice. Parents also can learn shlokas, just for your information. They can. But when Maharaj says there's a parent somewhere in one devotee's house, he knows all the shlokas. But when the cat comes to catch him, he doesn't chant any of the shlokas. He just squawks like a parrot. So parents also can learn shlokas. But are we putting them into practice? That is Bhagavatam. Brahma remembered all the prayers and chanted all these prayers in the 3rd canto, 9th chapter, but he acted on them. In the 10th chapter, he acted on every single prayer. That is the point of following the instructions of Krishna. So you will be bereft of all knowledge, Krishna says. You will become befooled. Befooled is an interesting word. It means, you're foolish and you will actually be cheated because of your foolishness. You become befooled. And the third thing is very important. Whatever endeavors that you want for perfection, you will be ruined. Ruined means destroyed. Look at Ravana. Look at Hiranyakashipu. They were very powerful and they were very, very pakka and very expert in their knowledge of Shastras. They knew their knowledge of Shastras. If you recall, Hiranyakashipu has an entire chapter in which he speaks in Bhagavatam. Imagine that. Who gets the chapter in Bhagavatam? It's prime TV appearance, in Bhagavatam. If you get a chapter in Bhagavatam, you must be somebody. But Bhagavatam tells us after he gave all his knowledge and all his advice to his mother and his nephews, he promptly forgot to act on it later. So it shows us that we cannot be whimsical in following instructions of Krishna. Sometimes we are too smart for our own pants. Krishna, I'll follow this, I'll follow that. Have you met sometimes devotees? They try to find shortcuts to the instructions with very clever arguments. But it's not the way to do so. You have to follow the instructions of Krishna. And so Krishna makes it very clear. Prabhupada makes it clear in the purport. The flaw of not being Krishna conscious is stated herein. As there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Head, there will definitely be punishment for those who do not follow the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So please, whenever we want to follow the instructions of Krishna, remember 331 and remember what happens when we don't follow in 332. And then, if we follow the instructions of Krishna, we should follow it according to 333. 333 is a very important verse also. Sadrisham chestate swasyaha prakate jnanavanapi prakatim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. See how practical Krishna is. Krishna says, even a man of knowledge will act according to his own nature. We all have our natures. We must accept it. Sudarshan Prabhu's nature and my nature are very different. We have to accept it. I cannot expect him to be my nature and he cannot expect me to be of his nature. So just because one devotee is opposing, one devotee is very loud and I am very soft, I cannot say, Prabhu, you have to be soft. Because I am soft. But he is just loud by nature. Some people are a little bit boisterous. They're just like that. But some people are very quiet. Some people love to dance. They will just jump up and down. Some people will stand at the corner and pray. I pray somebody won't pull me, and I don't have to dance. It's like that. Some people like to sing, some people don't. But some people just love to do deity worship and some people just won't do it. Everyone has his nature. But very important, Krishna says, we must accept that everyone follows their nature. There's no point trying to repress the nature. So even if we want to follow the instructions of Krishna, it is alright to follow it according to our natures. That is very important. Sometimes we think someone is not following instructions because their nature is different, but they are following it. Brahma is a good example. Brahma's nature is passion. He needs to be in the mode of passion because only in the mode of passion can one create. If you are very sattvic, you will never create. It's very hard to create anything if you're not passionate about it. Have you noticed? Even in secular world, if you want to start something, you have to be passionate about it. You can't just sit down and say, I will start something. It won't happen. I have to start something, I have to do this, I have to do that, right? Maintenance is very different. In maintenance mode, you have to become sattvic. Because if you're not sattvic when you're maintaining something, right, you will be destroyed, right? So Brahma's nature was passion. But according to the nature, he followed the instruction of Krishna to create. This is a very important point. The squirrel and the Vanaras in Ramayana, they heard the same instruction from Lord Ram in the evening. And what was that instruction? To somehow build a bridge across mainland to Lanka. So the Vanaras started hurling boulders. The squirrels started throwing pebbles and grains of sand. And the Vanaras told the squirrels, stop wasting time. Move away. We are the big guys. We will build the bridge. No need for you to do it. But Lord Ram came out And he encouraged the squirrel to continue doing what he could do, because the squirrel was performing his duty according to his capacity, according to his squirrel nature. That's all he could do. But he did it according to follow the instructions of Krishna or Lord Ram. So there could be a vast external difference between the way we do and follow instructions. But if we are following according to our nature, then we should not begrudge others and think that they are not following the instructions of Krishna. This is very important. It breaks down families. When husband and wife have different natures but both are following Krishna's instructions, our tendency is to say you're doing it wrong. Good luck, your house becomes Kurukshetra. No Vrindavan Dham in the house. It's not going to happen. We look at our children and we think they must become exactly like the parents. Why? They have their nature. We should fan their proclivity according to their nature. And in time, they themselves will come. They themselves will sit. They themselves will follow. Krishna is expert in this. So we forget this verse very often. This is the point of the verse. Therefore, don't give up your occupational duties, Krishna says. Wherever you are, sthane sthitaha, you do it from where you are. Don't give it up suddenly and become sadhu baba. Because transcendentally, you are not transcendental, it's artificial. Then you will be freed from the clutches of Maya. This is very important. So you see, one example was a squirrel. The other good example is, if you remember in Ramayana also, you remember that Hanumanji was tasked to bring the Sanjivani plant from a mountain just to revive Lakshman. Of course, the Vaidya was very clear about the description of the plant. But when Hanumanji reached the mountain, he didn't know which plant it was. He's not the Vaidya, right? He's not the pharmacist. It's not like, he went there and there's a prescription, please give me this, Lakshman is in trouble, he comes back. No, he had to find it. So what did he do? According to his nature, he was not expert in this. Prabhupada says in the lecture, he says that, but he could carry the whole mountain. That he was powerful. So never mind, if I can't get the pharmacy medicine from the pharmacy, I'll bring the pharmacy to the patient. And that's what he did. He brought the whole mountain and he left it there, and the Vaidya could pick up the plant and Lakshman was revived. So you see, according to our nature, we are following the instructions of Krishna. Look at the Devatas who churned the milk ocean. And look at Vasuki, and look at the demons. They were all churning. Krishna was the one who gave the instruction to the Devatas, hey, declare truce with the demons, and you all churn. So it was not in the Devatas' interest that the demons should become tired. So Krishna, when he saw everybody was tired when they were churning, Krishna tried so hard to assist them according to their nature. In the mode of goodness, he entered into the hearts of the Devatas to encourage them. In the mode of ignorance, he entered into the heart of Vasuki and he encouraged him. And in the mode of passion, he entered into the hearts of the demons, even the demons, and he encouraged them to churn. So you see, it's very important for us to be able to follow Krishna's instructions, but to be mindful that we follow Krishna's instructions according to our natures. That is Sastri. There's nothing wrong with that. And we will all help each other to follow his instructions when we recognize that. As a community, we have to help each other that way. Don't judge each other. We are all trying to follow the instructions of the Lord, but we should help each other. Then Krishna, Srila Prabhupada, and the Acharyas, they become pleased. They become pleased. Because if you don't follow the instructions of Krishna, then 7, 15, 19 is the effect for a devotee. Forget demons, for devotees. What happens when we don't follow? When you don't follow the instructions of Krishna, the result is you become greedy for whatever is in the world. If you do not become a devotee, then the chances are you will never be satisfied with life. A mark of a devotee is self-satisfaction, prasanatma. But those who are not, then 7, 15, 19, these are instructions given by Narada Muni to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Instructions for civilized beings. What a nice chapter. And there is nicely stated, Asantushtasya viprasya tejo vidya tapo yashaha shravanti indriya launyena jnanam chaiva avakiryate. Very important verse. It's one of the frightening verses in Bhagavatam. When we become greedy to just serve our senses and not obey the instructions of Krishna, many things will leave us as a devotee. The first, we will lose our spiritual strength. In other words, our sadhana will go. So we can inspect ourselves, Is our sadhana according to the way we have started our life, or is our sadhana diminishing? Very important. Second thing that will go, whatever education we have about Krishna, Vedic education, slowly that will go. Third thing that will go, we will not be very austere. Over the years, it will become more and more difficult to wake up for Mangalarti, more and more difficult to chant, more and more difficult to be able to sit down and concentrate on Krishna. Austerities will go. The next thing is our reputation will also go. And reputation is so important, isn't it? If devotees lose reputation, our movement loses reputation. Srila Prabhupada loses reputation. You are representatives of Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas. How we behave is reflective on our acharyas. If you want to bring bad name to them, then this is what will happen. So when we are not self-satisfied, when we are not fixed in the instructions of Krishna, which free us from this lack of satisfaction, the result is our knowledge will gradually vanish. It will leave us. It will leave us. You'll find it more and more difficult to remember verses, to take classes, to come for the programs. It'll just be more and more difficult. So this is a very important point. Now, the impact of following the instructions of Krishna is also very nice. Because the moment you can follow the instructions of Krishna, then today's verse tells us what happens. If you follow my instruction, by following my instructions, what will happen? Brahma will be given the potency to generate living entities. Therefore, it tells us one very important thing, that if we follow the instructions of Krishna, just like Brahma was empowered then to create, we will be empowered to perform devotional service. Please remember that. If you follow the instructions of Krishna, it is Krishna and our spiritual master who will empower us to perform devotional service. Do not think that your chanting, your reading, right, your austerities are only your work. In a few verses before this also, Brahma was reminded by Krishna that your chanting, your tapas, right, everything that you have done, they are all because of my mercy. Therefore, if you want to follow instructions of Krishna, the result of that instructions is you become empowered. Everyone will be guided by the Super Soul. This is the value of following Krishna. The Devatas followed Krishna's instructions in the churning of the milk ocean, if you recall, isn't it? And they followed it just out of their love for Krishna and because they are devotees. They realized how precarious it was because the demons grabbed the Amrit, the pot of Amrit. And even then, at the point when the demons grabbed it, the Devatas said, hold on, what did Krishna tell us? Krishna told us, do not take the Amrit no matter what happens. And that was the turning point. Do you know how difficult it is at the point when you remember Krishna, follow his instructions, then you see that someone is taking something. And Krishna had guaranteed you, don't worry, you will get it. But someone is taking it, he's going away with it. You will forget his instruction and you run after that Amrit, right? So how much austerity and faith the Devatas must have had to remember Krishna. Sometimes it's very easy for us to say, Devatas are not pure devotees, they are not up to the level, we are much better than them. Inwardly we may think, we are different, we are better. But we will never be able to exercise this control that the Devatas did. They did. Why? Because they followed the instructions of Krishna. Krishna empowered them. He empowered them. Because even though everything was the same, the result they achieved was because they took shelter of Krishna. What's that verse? 8:9-28 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Such a beautiful verse. Evam sura suragana samadesha kalaha etartha karma matayopi phale vikalpaha Tatravitam suragana phalam anjasapur Yadpada pankajaraja Shrayanana daitya. 8:9-28, right, Prabhu? The meaning is very nice. What's the meaning? See the meaning. The place, the time, the cause, the purpose, the activity, and the ambition were all the same for both the demigods and the demons. But the demigods achieve one result and the demons another. Why? Because the demigods are always under the shelter of the dust of the Lord's lotus feet. They could very easily drink the nectar and get its result. The demons, however, not having sought shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord, were unable to achieve the result they desired. See the point? It's very clear, right? We may be in the same situation with someone, but if we are obedient to the instructions of Krishna, we will be successful in our life. We will be. It's a very important point for us to remember. So remember this point, and I'm ending on this point of this shloka. You cannot claim to be a devotee unless you're following Krishna's instructions. Please remember that. We cannot claim to be devotees. We may think we are, but we are not. And how do we follow these instructions? Faith. No envy. We follow it regularly. We are not resentful of the principles, right? And we are not defeated, and neither are we hopeless. See how many important points are there for us to follow the instructions of Krishna. And one last point. To follow the instructions of Krishna, we also need 4 very important qualities. Very important qualities. The first quality is found in 3.9.22 of Srimad Bhagavatam. These are all Brahma's prayers, and we are winding down, so I thought we should take it from there. In 3.9.22 of Brahma's prayers, Brahma asks for one thing. He says, please give me the introspection to create. In other words, when we want to follow Krishna's instructions, we must pray to be introspective of our devotional service. Don't just do it because we have to do it. We should introspect. What am I doing? How am I doing it? We must become attached to Krishna. And that will happen when we keep thinking and remembering His instructions. So that is introspection. The second thing that's very important is the next shloka, the 23rd shloka. In the 23rd shloka, he says, his prayer is, I pray to be always engaged in your service. That's the secret formula. The more you are engaged in Krishna's service, automatically the more obedient you are to His instructions. What a nice point, huh? The more you are engaged in His service, the more automatically, byproduct is you will be following His instructions. That's why Prabhupada created this society, so we are engaged. And Brahma says, let me be engaged. Why? So that I will not have the false prestige that I am doing the service. You see? That false prestige will stop us from following the instructions of Krishna. 3rd verse, 24th verse. In that verse, Brahma is saying, I pray that in the course of my activity, creation, let me never be deviated from the vibrations of the Vedic hymns. In simple terms, let me never stop studying Bhagavatam. That is what Brahma is saying, right? The Vedic hymns are nothing else but Chatushloka Bhagavatam and Bhagavatam. So he's saying, I may be busy, but let me daily have my reading of Bhagavatam. Let me daily be able to sit down and study Bhagavatam. Study Bhagavatam. Of course, that time Bhagavatam was not in the book. But I'm sure that if Srila Prabhupada had done it, Brahma would read it. Right? Because of Prabhupada's purity, Brahma would read it. And I'm sure Brahma would relish Prabhupada's purports also. Because the purports are giving us life today. And the last shloka, 25th. So remember these 4 shlokas from the 9th chapter. Very important. They give us the mood in which Brahma was prepared to follow the instructions of Krishna. And they are the last 4 shlokas before he stops speaking. Normally, if you look at Bhagavatam, right, the last few shlokas of anybody's prayers are normally the summary and the most important. The 9th chapter of almost every Bhagavatam cantos are normally what we call the seminal chapters. Don't ask me why, you have to ask Krishna why. 2.9, 3.9, 4.9, they are all very, very important in the whole canto, right? It's just one of the things that we have found very, very consistent actually. But look at the last verse of 25th in this chapter. What is his last prayer? His last prayer is very personal. I pray that Krishna will smile at me. We all want someone to smile at us, right? The reason you are here is because look at Jagannath's smile. What a broad smile Jagannath is giving. What if you came in here and today Jagannath was not smiling? I think, you just take prasadam and just leave and not come back tomorrow. What if Krishna was moody tomorrow? Next day he's happy. Third day he's alright. Fourth day he's very sober. No. We should also be this way. We should always be smiling in Krishna consciousness. Why should we be so morose? Then you might as well just become materialist. You came to Krishna consciousness to smile. And half your life you cannot smile even when you're in Krishna consciousness. It's something is wrong, isn't it, with the way we are approaching it. That's why Brahma is saying, Krishna, your smile, please be kind and smile to me and kindly speak your directions. So this is the mood in which we follow Krishna's instruction. And the beautiful point is, Brahma could create because Krishna created his body. In today's shloka, Brahma could create because Krishna created his body. Therefore, without Krishna creating our bodies, we cannot do anything. The value of human life is so important, don't miss it. And now we wind down our time by looking at text 44. Because in text 44, it is very straightforward. Maitreya now is speaking. And Maitreya now says that this important principle is given. Krishna was there before Brahma. Because when Krishna appeared, right, Brahma was there. But it's very important for us to understand that Krishna is not the product of Brahma. Many materialists believe that Brahma created the universe and he created Krishna. But that is not true. Because Brahma was alone in this world and he remembered Krishna and he meditated on Krishna. And when Krishna appeared before him, that form was the same form as what he was meditating in the heart. This is very important. Whatever form you meditate on Krishna in the heart, he will appear before you. He appeared before Dhruva in the same way. He appeared before Bhishma Dev in the same way. So this is always the proof, the evidence that Brahma was not there before Krishna. Krishna was always there before Brahma. Aham eva sameva re nanyad yasad asad param paschad aham yad etacha yo vashishteta sosmyaham. This is the first Chatushloka in Srimad Bhagavatam. And in the purport, Prabhupada writes very nicely, referencing Chatushloka. Because this is the purport that tells us exactly the point that Maitreya is saying and Prabhupada is saying in the purport. And that is, Brahma, I, the personality of Godhead. Krishna says, I was existing before creation, when there was nothing but myself. There was then, after that, there was no material nature even. There was nothing. Then what happened is, whatever that you see now, right, is also me. In other words, whatever Brahma has created is also Krishna. And he has news for Brahma. After you are also annihilated, whatever that will remain is actually I. So we should remember very clearly that Krishna is the source of everything, as Srila Prabhupada says. He is Aham Sarvasya Prabhu. And Krishna is eternal. He has never changed. He will never change. And if Krishna is eternal, Krishna consciousness is eternal. If Krishna consciousness is eternal, devotional service is eternal. If devotional service is eternal, then all our scriptures, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, they are eternal. And if we follow eternity, then by Krishna's grace, we will relinquish this body and we will be able to serve him eternally. So our services are also eternal. The sharir may die, but our services never end. Very beautiful point. Our sharir may die, but our services never end because we are also eternal by nature. Please remember this. This is the concept of eternity. So we must remember this very, very important point. In conclusion, we must remember this nice area. Whatever it is, we must learn something from Brahma. Before Brahma could start his activity of creation, he turned to Krishna and he sought his blessings. Before we can do anything in devotional service, any endeavor, any activity, always remember, start by praying to Krishna. Start by invoking the blessings of the Vaishnava Acharyas. Start by praying to Srila Prabhupada. Start by praying to your spiritual masters. That is a very, very important thing. When you have time, you should look at the one line in the purport of 8.1.14. It's a beautiful purport. I have never found Srila Prabhupada giving such a clear line. It's in the last line of the first paragraph of 8.1.14. How does it go? It starts with the Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually the enjoyer. Is it there, Prabhu? It's 8.1.14. Do you see that? Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is actually the enjoyer. And therefore, if we begin our activities for His satisfaction, look at the last line. How does it go? We will gradually lose our taste for material activities. We're all asking that question every day. I'm chanting, but I'm not losing taste. I'm not losing taste for material activities. Instead, I'm losing taste for chanting. What's wrong? What's wrong? The trick is this. In this one line, Prabhupada tells us everything. Have we really begun our activities for His satisfaction? To know that, you have to introspect. Now you understand why Brahma is introspective. Otherwise, he will love creating. He will gain a taste for it from a material point of view. But he didn't want to. Therefore, please start your activities by meditating on Krishna. Start it for His satisfaction. Be clear He is the enjoyer. And then by Krishna's mercy, by Prabhupada's promise, you will lose taste for material activities. It will happen. It will happen. It's tried, it's tested. It will happen. Arjuna, before he shot Brahmastra, what did he do? He prayed very hard to Krishna. What's that verse? Krishna, Krishna Mahabaho, Bhaktanam Abhayankaraha, Tvameko Dhayamananam, Apavargo Sisamstrite. Like that he sang 4 verses, I think. So you can see, every devotee started their day by remembering Krishna. Every devotee, midway through the day, they remember Krishna. Every devotee, when the end of the day is there, they also remember Krishna. What is that verse? Grahe grahe gopavadhu kadambe sarve militva samavapya yogam punyani namani patanti nityam govinda namo dharmadaveti vikretu kama kilagopakanya murari pada pitacheta vritti dadyadikam mohavacha mocha govinda namo dharmadaveti. Bilva Mangal Thakur sings Vikretu Kama, no, Graha Graha. At the end of the day, when the residents of Vrindavan had finished everything, what did they do? They didn't come back and turn on Netflix. They didn't come back and relax and do something. No. They took out their mridangas, they took out their chanting instruments, and they would sing the glories of Krishna. If they had nothing like that, they would take out their beds, because they slept outside when the weather was good, and they would just sit down and talk about Krishna's activities. Hey, Krishna did this, Krishna did that. It was transcendental gossip of the highest. But it was the gossip that saved them, not our gossip. Oh, this person did this, that person did that. No, it's all about Krishna. All Krishna. And the gopis, they were so upset with Brahma, the creator. In the morning, they'll remember Krishna. Aditya bhavan ahnikanalam trute yugayate tvam apashyatam kutila kuntalam Shri Mukham Chate Jadam Dikshitam Ashma Kridrisham Dina Parikshaye Nila Kuntalai Vanuruhananam Bibradavitam Galarajasvalam Darshayan Muhu Manasila Smaran Vivrayachasi. In the last verse I chanted to you, that's in the 31st chapter, I think 12th verse. So nicely the gopis say, at the end of the day, Krishna, you repeatedly show us your lotus face, covered with dark blue locks of hair and thickly powdered with dust. Thus, O hero, you arouse lusty desires in our minds. This is the mood. The gopis waited and waited for Krishna to come back. And when he came back, he just became the object of their desire. That's all. There was nothing in their hearts but Krishna. In the beginning of the day, nothing but Krishna. Middle of the day, nothing but Krishna. When they are selling, Vikre to Kama, they are selling all their food, dai and butter and yogurt. Instead of saying, buy this, buy that, they are chanting Govinda, Damodara, Madhavedi. And people thought these people are bad people. But they were so absorbed in Krishna. In that way, if we do it, then we can follow Krishna's instructions. Remember, without being self-controlled, without being disciplined, without being fully obedient, no one can become successful in following the instructions of the spiritual master. And without doing so, no one is able to go back to Godhead. Jai Gita Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Ananta Kodi Vaishnavinda ki Jai, Jai Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki Jai, Jai Shri Gaur Purnima ki Jai, Gaur Premanjana Jai, Jai Shri Prabhupada ki. Are there questions? Are there comments? Yes, Mataji.